Hi, everyone. This is Paul Puckett. As promised, I'm going to make a couple of this video to do two things: to bring you up to date on what our group has done. You see the members there, and they've done a great job. And then also maybe make an example, show an example how we might present this to the sessions during our presentations later in September and October. And try to keep it to 10 minutes. So here we go. So the first thing you need to know, the COM challenged us to do 4 things, and you see those, what they are there. The first thing we have to do is adjust the 2013 cash salary to 2023 valuation. And here's what the current salary administration is. It was 37,500, and now we have a minimum of 40,000, and that's 10 years old, and so we are charged with bringing that up to 2023 valuation. So how did we do that? Well, the first thing we did was use the consumer price index and the cost of living indexes that were available through the Department of Labor and also I think through census. And so, and we did that specific to our churches by zip code. So this is not, we really zoned in on our churches. And so by using that information, the $40,000 then becomes $53,600. There's been that much inflation in the 10 years. And so we have completed that. We can report that we have completed that job of bringing up to 2023 valuation. So then the next charge is, well, how do we support this? You know, it's quite a big change from 40 to 53 for brand new ministers. And we're going to support this by giving evidence that will reveal that we are not competitive with Kentucky presbyteries or presbyteries in adjacent states. So that would be one of our measurements. So the first myth that you hear is that Kentucky is a cheaper place to live than other states. So let's look at that. The first thing we look at is the cost of living comparison. And you see that Kentucky is number 34 of the 50 states. So that means there's 16 states we are at 34. We are comparatively maybe not as expensive as other states like Hawaii, New York, California, Massachusetts. In fact, we are cheaper than Virginia and Illinois. But the adjacent states that I show here, those states that we have to compete with for ministers, and this year only 9 are available, I think, from all over the United States, then we are more costly than Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, Missouri, and Tennessee. That hinders us in getting them to come to Kentucky. Well, what about the average income? So here is the other part of the story. Average household income in a four people household. You see there that we are number 44 out of 50. All states you see here. The average income is on a 4 people house is higher, except for West Virginia. And so we don't compare very well in either income or cost. And so the conclusion is Kentucky is not a cheaper place to live in comparison to other states, compared to other states. And in fact, Kentucky residents experience a higher cost of living and a lower household income as compared to adjoining adjacent states. So that's not good. That's a reason why we need to increase our minimum to the 53.6. Going on, the second thing we do is we're going to see how competitive we are with the Kentucky presbyteries and the presbyteries in other adjacent states. We are fortunate enough to get 10 minimum call of worksheets from 10 presbyteries in and around Kentucky. You see here that at the top we have Detroit, Arkansas, Eastern Virginia, Missouri, Michigan, Pittsburgh, Ohio, Indiana. And I have highlighted the ones that are that are adjacent to us, but added the others just for comparison sakes. So you see here they are. And you see, if we stayed at 40,000, here's what the effective salary is for Eastern Virginia, Missouri, Michigan, Pittsburgh, Ohio, and Indiana. This is current information that we received from Reverend Stephen Fortenberry. That is current. It's not old information. So if we are already way behind the others as compared if we stayed at 40. Now 53 puts us in a competitive situation. We are there, and we can be competitive against other presbyteries. Well, then also we just received some information concerning the Mid-Kentucky Presbytery. You know, that's out of Louisville. And so they have said in their just recent newsletter that that they went on for a page and a half about how the $70,000 was going to have to be the minimum to be competitive, and those churches that couldn't support 70,000 would have to go to a bivocal or bi-ministerial or bi-congregational situation. You can read more about that. I'll maybe give you a reference to how to get that. So then, if we stayed at 40,000, you see that the 53 again just wouldn't be competitive. And if at 70, you see that for the grand total, we are 78. We're competitive with the other presbyteries, those ones that we will be our closest competitors. So then the finding is that the current Western Kentucky Presbytery call minimums and compensation guidelines are not competitive with adjacent Kentucky presbyteries and presbyteries in adjacent states. We also found that the current Western Kentucky Presbytery ministerial compensation guidelines are outdated. So the third challenge to us from the COM committee is to update the call minimums and comparison guidelines. And you'll see that we're going to go into this in just a second. And here's what the new proposed would look like. It goes from 1 page to 10 pages. And in those 10 pages, we now have over the contents include overview, introduction, guiding principles, terms and general information, explanation on planning, fair compensation. Then, of course, the 2023 minimum terms of call, the salary change request process forms, and then considerations for Christian educators and CREs. That's all contained in there. And here's what a completed minimum terms of call would look like. You see that the 53.6 is what we just talked about, but then also we now have included, and of course, I want to jump over the Board of Pensions, but we would provide a fillable form that would automatically do this calculation, as Reverend Daniel Van Beek demonstrated to us. That calculation it seems to be a problem for many of our churches. So then we, with the group's help, and also from the Madisonville meeting of ministers, we are able to come up with a plan for the reimbursed expenses. That's how that fell out. And then also what we would as a guideline for vacations. And the only thing we haven't completed and haven't approached yet, we're still waiting for some, we're still considering how sabbatical leave, we could present that to our churches. And we're still working on that with many other people. So here, you know, that this just reminds me to tell you that, you know, we give guidance to our many churches, our sessions, as to what about approving salaries and also approving salary changes. And so this just reminds us that we need to do that. And here's the new form that we would suggest. And this is what, again, would be a fillable form that would automatically do the calculations for them. And we would on a yearly basis remind our churches about cost of living adjustments, new taxes, and new accreditations. And this just says that we would use this information to give guidance to our churches, as we ought to. So then, we've adjusted our first objective was to adjust the cash salary. We did that to 53.6. We supported the proposed increases by debunking myth number 1 and myth number 2, and we are almost complete with the 2023 call and minimums and compensation guidelines, that 10-page booklet that we want to have included in our administrative manual. And then we're waiting for approval and more direction from COM as to when these would be presented to sessions later this year. So we think that most churches, through better, we need to change the paradigm so we don't think about the building so much, especially the churches, set better priorities so we, through proper budgeting, so that funding the ministers, it becomes, and the ministry becomes priority number 1, rather than mowing the grass or painting the door. That ends my presentation. Looks like I was done in less than 10 minutes. If you have any questions, give me a call. Thank you.